On your knees, hands behind your head.
Officer, I'm a cert.
Do it! Did I say talk? Get down! Now.
Can't consequence with that.
The black man in surgical scrubs lowered himself to the cold asphalt. Gravel bit into his kneecaps. His hands locked behind his skull. Chief Gerald Holt leaned in close.
Look at you. Playing dress up in
scrubs. He flicked the hospital lanyard hanging from the man's neck. He turned to his officer and grinned. Book him. I've been cleaning trash off these streets for 18 years. One more won't hurt. The man on his knees said nothing, just breathed. Slow, steady. But what Chief Holt doesn't know, what no one on that street knows yet, is going to destroy his entire career. Yeah, he really thought he was in control. Let's see what happens next. 6 hours earlier, the world looked completely different for Dr. Derek Norwood. The fluorescent lights of Operating Room 3 buzzed faintly overhead. Derek stood at the surgical table, gloved hands steady, eyes locked on the exposed chest cavity in front of him. A 17-year-old boy. Car wreck on the interstate. Shattered ribs, a punctured lung filling with blood. The monitors beeped in a rhythm only surgeons understand. Fast. Too fast. Suction, Derek said, calm, like he was ordering coffee. The nurse cleared the blood. Derek's fingers moved with the kind of precision that takes 20 years to build. Stitch by stitch, vessel by vessel. The beeping slowed, the lung inflated, the boy's chest rose on its own. He's stable, Derek said, pulling off his gloves. Let's close him up. That was the second life he saved that day. The first was an 81-year-old man whose aorta ruptured at 6 in the morning. Most surgeons wouldn't even attempt that procedure. Derek did it before breakfast. This is who Derek Norwood is, Chief of Surgery at St. Whitfield Memorial Hospital, 22 years of experience.
Over 4,000 operations. A reputation so spotless that James Whitfield III, the hospital's billionaire board chairman, personally flew to Chicago 3 years ago just to recruit him. But outside those hospital walls, none of that seems to matter. Briarfield County is the kind of place that looks perfect from the road. Oak-lined streets, freshly painted fences, lawns trimmed so clean they look fake. Median household income sits around $280,000. The kind of town where people wave at each other from their porches and call it community. But look a little closer. The neighborhood watch signs are on every corner. Not because of crime, because of who might wander in. The population is 94% white. The remaining 6% know exactly what that feels like. Derek is part of that 6%. In 3 years of living here, he's been followed through the hardware store twice. A cashier once asked to see a second form of ID when he paid with a credit card. His neighbor across the street has never once said hello. He doesn't talk about it much, doesn't post about it, doesn't complain. He just goes to work, saves lives, and drives home. And that drive home is where everything falls apart. It was a little past 7 in the evening, late October. The sky had turned that deep amber color right before it goes dark. Leaves scattered across Oak Ridge Road like confetti after a parade nobody attended. Derek pulled out of the hospital parking lot in his dark blue Chevy Tahoe. Not flashy, not new. He could afford any car on the lot, but he chose this one because it doesn't draw attention. A deliberate choice. A survival strategy he learned from his father 30 years ago. Inside the car, a classical station played low on the radio. A medical journal sat on the passenger seat. His hospital lanyard swung gently from the rearview mirror. On the dashboard, his phone buzzed with a text from his teenage daughter. "Dad, don't forget the food! Please!" He smiled. tapped the voice reply. "On my way, sweetheart. 20 minutes." The speed limit on Oak Ridge Road is 35. Derek was doing 33. He always drives under the limit in Briarfield. Another thing his father taught him: never give them a reason, not even a small one. But here's what Derek didn't know. Chief Gerald Holt had been running the Briarfield Police Department for 18 years. He answered to no one. The town council rubber-stamped his budget every year without reading it. He played golf with the mayor on Saturdays. He drank bourbon with the county judge on Sundays. His word was law. Literally. In the last 2 years alone, 6 excessive force complaints had been filed against his department. Every single one involved a person of color. Every single one was dismissed. Internally. By Holt himself. And tonight, Holt was parked in his cruiser on the shoulder of Oak Ridge Road, engine idling, window down. He watched the dark blue Tahoe approach through the amber light. He saw the driver. He picked up his radio. "Dawson, I got one. Oak Ridge, heading south. Run the plates if you want, but I already know. Pull him over." The blue lights flashed on behind Derek Norwood's car, like a verdict that had already been decided. Derek saw the lights in his rearview mirror and felt his stomach tighten. Not because he'd done anything wrong, because he already knew how this would go. He pulled over immediately, turned off the engine, turned off the radio, placed both hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, fingers spread wide so they could be seen clearly. This wasn't his first time. His father's voice echoed somewhere in the back of his skull, the same words he'd heard since he was 16. Both hands are visible, no sudden moves. Yes, sir, no, sir. Stay alive first, be angry later.
Gravel crunched behind him. Footsteps, slow and deliberate. A flashlight beam hit his side mirror and bounced into his eyes. Officer Craig Dawson appeared at the window. Young, early 30s, jaw clenched, one hand resting on his holster like he was expecting a war. "License and registration." "Of course, officer." Derek kept his voice low, controlled. "My wallet is in my back left pocket. I'm going to reach for it slowly." "Did I ask for a speech? Just hand it over." Derek reached, slowly. Every movement is calculated. He pulled out his wallet and extended it through the window. Dawson snatched it, flipped it open, glanced at the license, then looked back at Derek, then at the car, then back at Derek. "This is your vehicle?" "Yes, sir." "Are you sure about that?" "I'm sure." Dawson aimed the flashlight directly into Derek's face, held it there. The light was blinding. Derek didn't flinch, didn't blink, just sat there, hands still on the wheel. "Step out of the vehicle."
May I ask why I've been stopped?
"You may not. Step out, now." Derek exhaled through his nose, unbuckled his seatbelt, opened the door slowly, stepped out onto the gravel shoulder with his hands slightly raised. The evening air was cool, the kind of October chill that bites through thin fabric. His surgical scrubs offered nothing against it. Goosebumps crawled up his forearms. Dawson grabbed his shoulder and spun him toward the car. "Hands on the hood!" Derek placed his palms flat on the cold metal. The engine heat had already faded. The surface was almost icy. That's when the second cruiser pulled up. The headlights washed over the scene. A black man in scrubs, palms down on the hood of his own car. An officer standing behind him with a flashlight. From a distance, it looked exactly like what it was. Chief Gerald Holt stepped out of the cruiser. He didn't rush. He adjusted his belt, straightened his collar, walked over like a man inspecting his property.
He looked at Derek the way you'd look at a stain on a clean floor. "Well, what do we have here?" It wasn't a question. "Chief, I pulled him over on Oak Ridge heading south," Dawson reported. "He's being cooperative, but something feels off."
Something always feels off with these ones. Holt circled Derek slowly. His boots ground the gravel. Each step is deliberate. Nice car for a guy in pajamas. These are surgical scrubs, sir. Derek's voice remained flat. I'm Dr. Derek Norwood. I'm chief of surgery at St. Whitfield Memorial. My hospital ID is around my neck. Holt stopped, looked at the lanyard, read it, then laughed. Chief of surgery. He said it the way you'd say a child's imaginary job title. Right. And I'm the Pope. He unclipped the lanyard from Derek's neck and tossed it onto the roof of the car like it was garbage. You know what I think? I think you found these scrubs somewhere. Maybe a dumpster. Maybe a laundromat. I think this car doesn't belong to you.
And I think you've got about 10 seconds to give me a reason not to search every inch of it. You need my consent or a warrant to search my vehicle. Silence. Holt stepped closer, close enough that Derek could feel the heat of his breath on the back of his neck. Son, I am the warrant. He snapped his fingers at Dawson. Open it up. Dawson moved to the passenger side, opened the door, started pulling things out. The medical journal, a stethoscope case, a bag of surgical instruments wrapped in sterile cloth, a protein bar, a water bottle. Dawson held up the surgical instrument bag. Chief, what's this? Holt walked over, unzipped it, looked at the scalpels, forceps, hemostats, tools that Derek uses to save lives every single day. Looks like burglary tools to me, Holt smiled. Bag it. Derek closed his eyes. His fingers pressed harder against the hood. The cold metal numbed his palms. Those are surgical instruments. They're hospital property. There's an inventory sticker on the inside of the bag with my name on it. Holt didn't check, didn't even glance. You know what your problem is? Holt said, walking back to Derek. You think talking like that makes you sound smart. It doesn't. It makes you sound guilty. A third cruiser arrived, Officer Tanya Moore, late 20s. She parked behind Holt's vehicle and stepped out quietly. Her body cam was active. The small red light blinked steadily on her chest. She took in the scene. A man in scrubs, hands on the hood, 2 officers hovering. No visible threat. Her expression shifted into something uncomfortable, but she said nothing. She stood near her cruiser and watched. By now, the neighborhood had started to notice. A white couple appeared on their porch 2 houses down. The woman had a glass of wine. The man had his arms crossed. They watched like it was television. Across the street, a college-aged kid raised his phone and started recording. The phone's tiny lens captured everything. The flashing lights, the officers, the man in scrubs who hadn't raised his voice once. Derek's phone buzzed in his pocket. Then again. Then a third time. Each vibration felt like a small heartbeat against his thigh. The hospital was calling. He couldn't reach it, couldn't move. Holt noticed the buzzing. Popular guy. Probably your dealer is wondering where you are. That's my hospital. Sure it is. Holt nodded at Dawson. The younger officer pulled out handcuffs. Turn around. On what charge? Resisting a lawful order, possession of suspicious instruments, failure to comply. Pick whichever one makes you feel better. I haven't resisted anything. I've been standing here with my hands on my own car for the last 15 minutes. Holt tilted his head. See, that right there? That little attitude? That's resistance. Dawson grabbed Derek's wrist, twisted it behind his back. The second wrist followed. The handcuffs clicked shut with a sound that echoed down the quiet suburban street. Cold steel against warm skin. The surgical scrubs bunched at his wrists.
The red and blue lights painted the oak trees in slow, repeating waves. Derek's phone buzzed one more time in his pocket. He couldn't answer it. Nobody knew it yet. Not the officers, not the neighbors, not the kid with the camera. But that phone call was about to change everything. Because on the other end of that line, inside the emergency room at St. Whitfield Memorial, someone was dying. And the only person who could save her was now sitting in the back of a police cruiser, hands cuffed behind his back, watching the oak trees blur through a cage of metal and glass. Holt tapped the roof of the cruiser twice, the way you'd tap a horse. "Let's go, Dawson. Drop him at the station. I'll finish with the vehicle." The cruiser pulled away. Derek didn't look back. He sat perfectly still, spine straight, eyes forward, breathing slow. The neighbors went back inside. The college kid stopped recording and posted the video with a single caption: "They just arrested a doctor for nothing." Within an hour, that video would have 10,000 views. Within a day, it would have 10 million. But right now, in this moment, it was just a man in handcuffs and a street that had already forgotten him. The booking room at Briarfield County Police Station smelled like burnt coffee and old paper. Fluorescent tubes hummed overhead, casting the kind of pale green light that makes everyone look sick. Derek stood in front of a counter while a processing officer took his belongings. One wallet, one phone, now showing 9 missed calls, one set of car keys, one hospital lanyard that Holt had tossed back into the cruiser like trash. The processing officer, a heavy-set man in his 50s, looked at the hospital ID, looked at Derek, looked at the ID again. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, then closed it. "Fingerprints next. Stand over there." Derek walked to the ink station, pressed each finger onto the pad one at a time. The black ink stained the ridges of the same hands that had stitched a teenager's lung back together 6 hours ago. Then came the mugshot. Face forward, no expression. The camera flashed. A man in surgical scrubs, inmate number across his chest, eyes steady, jaw set. The photograph looked like a contradiction. A healer framed like a criminal. Holt walked in just as they finished. He had a fresh cup of coffee in one hand and Derek's surgical instrument bag in the other. He dropped the bag on the counter like it was evidence from a crime scene. "Log these. Suspicious tools found during a vehicle search." He looked at Derek. "You want to update your little story now? Maybe tell me where you really got this stuff?" "Those instruments are registered to St. Whitfield Memorial Hospital. My name is engraved on 3 of them."
Holt picked up a scalpel, held it to the light, turned it slowly. "Engraved," he smirked. "Cute. You know what I think? I think you're a very creative thief. The scrubs, the fake ID, the little bag of toys. Almost had me." He set the scalpel down and leaned on the counter. Almost. Derek said nothing. His jaw tightened. A vein pulsed at his temple, but his hands stayed still at his sides. "I'd like to make my phone call," Derek said. "Phone call." Holt sipped his coffee. "Yeah, that's going to have to wait. I have a legal right. You have the rights I give you in my station. Sit down." Dawson led Derek to a holding cell at the end of a narrow hallway. The cell was small. A metal bench bolted to the wall. A stainless steel toilet in the corner with no privacy screen. The walls were scratched with old graffiti. Names, dates, desperate little carvings from people who had sat here before. The metal door slammed shut. The lock engaged with a deep, heavy click. Derek sat on the bench. The metal was cold through the thin fabric of his scrubs. He placed his hands on his knees, squeezed once, released, squeezed again. He stared at the wall across from him and breathed. 10 minutes passed.
Then Holt appeared at the bars. He leaned against them casually, coffee still in hand, like a man visiting an exhibit at a zoo. "Are you comfortable there, doctor?" He said the word doctor the way you'd say clown, stretching it, mocking it. Derek didn't look up. "See, here's what I don't understand." Holt took a slow sip. "People like you come into towns like this and think, what? That you belong? That we're just going to roll out the red carpet?" Derek's eyes stayed on the wall. "I've kept this town clean for 18 years. 18 years. Not a single break-in. Not a single robbery. You know why? Because I know who belongs here and who doesn't. I can smell it." He tapped the bars with his coffee cup. The metallic ring echoed down the hallway.
And you? You don't belong here. You never did. So wherever you actually came from, Chicago, Detroit, wherever, I suggest you start thinking about going back. Derek looked up, slowly. His eyes met Holt's. There was no anger in them, no fear, just something still, something patient. The kind of calm that comes from surviving this exact moment 100 times before. "Are you finished?" Derek asked. Holt grinned. "Oh, I'm just getting started." He pushed off the bars and walked away. His boots echoed down the hall until a door opened and closed somewhere out of sight. What Holt didn't see, what he was too arrogant to notice, was the small security camera mounted in the upper corner of the hallway. Its red light blinked softly in the dim light. It had recorded every word. Every single one. Meanwhile, 12 miles away, St. Whitfield Memorial Hospital was in chaos. Derek's phone had been taken at booking. The ER had called it 11 times. No answer.
The chief of surgery had vanished. Dr. Amanda West, the attending ER physician, stood at the nurse's station with a phone pressed to her ear. Her other hand gripped the edge of the counter. "What do you mean he's in custody? For what?" The voice on the other end, the Briarfield PD desk officer, was vague. "We have Derek Norwood in holding. That's all I can tell you." Dr. West hung up and immediately paged hospital administration. Within minutes, the call reached James Whitfield III at his home across town. Whitfield was in his study, reading glasses on, a glass of scotch untouched on the desk. When his assistant relayed the message, he didn't raise his voice, didn't slam anything. He simply took off his glasses, set them on the desk, and said, "Get my car." But before Whitfield could leave his driveway, the ER doors at St. Whitfield burst open. Paramedics rushed in a stretcher. A woman in her early 50s, face pale, lips turning blue, chest barely rising.
The cardiac monitor screamed a jagged, erratic rhythm.
Female, 52, collapsed at a restaurant. Acute aortic dissection. BP crashing. She's coding. Dr. West ran beside the stretcher. She looked at the patient's face, then at the ID bracelet the paramedics had tagged. Patricia Holt. The name hit the room like a brick through glass. Dr. West stabilized her. Epinephrine, chest compressions. They pulled her back once, then twice. The rhythm returned, weak, stuttering, but present. But stabilization was temporary. Patricia needed emergency surgery. A torn aortic valve. The kind of repair that requires a very specific surgeon, someone trained in emergency cardiothoracic reconstruction. There was only one surgeon in the region certified for this procedure. Dr. West already knew. She looked at the nurse beside her. "Get Whitfield on the phone, right now. Tell him it's not just about Derek anymore." She paused. "Tell him the chief of police's wife is going to die in this ER if we don't get our surgeon back." The clock on the wall read 7:58 p.m. Patricia Holt had less than 90 minutes, and the only man who could save her was sitting on a metal bench in a holding cell, staring at a wall, listening to the echo of a man who had just told him he didn't belong.
Nah, Wait. Are you seeing this? This man's in a cell, still in his scrubs, locked up. Meanwhile, the guy who put him there, his wife's dying. And the only doctor who can actually save her? Yeah, it's the same man he just called a thief. Like, what? You really can't make this up. The black Mercedes pulled into the Briarfield Police Station parking lot at 8:14 p.m. It didn't park in a visitor space. It parked directly in front of the main entrance, sideways, like a statement. James Whitfield III stepped out, navy blazer over a white polo, silver hair combed back, no rush in his step, no panic on his face, just the quiet, terrifying calm of a man whose family name is carved into the front of a hospital. He walked through the front doors like he owned them. In a way, he owned half the county. The desk officer looked up, recognized him instantly, sat up straighter. "Mr. Whitfield, what can I—" "Get me Chief Holt. Now." The desk officer picked up the phone. His hand was shaking slightly. Within 2 minutes, Holt emerged from the back hallway. He was still holding his coffee, still wearing that same self-satisfied expression, but it flickered when he saw who was standing in his lobby. "Jim," Holt extended his hand. "What brings you down here at this hour?" Whitfield didn't take the hand, didn't even look at it. "You're holding Dr. Derek Norwood in your facility." Holt's smile thinned. "We've got a suspect by that name, yeah. Routine stop. Suspicious behavior." Suspicious behavior. Whitfield repeated the words like he was tasting something rotten. What behavior, specifically? He was driving a vehicle that didn't match his what, Gerald? His skin color? The lobby went quiet. The desk officer stared at his keyboard. Dawson, who had been leaning against a door frame in the back, straightened up. Holt's jaw tightened. "Now hold on. We followed standard procedure." "Standard procedure." Whitfield took one step closer. His voice didn't rise. It dropped, which was worse. "Let me tell you what your standard procedure has done tonight." He paused, let the silence build. "Well, you've been down here playing cowboy with my chief of surgery, a man who has saved more lives in this county than you have protected. Your wife was brought into my emergency room." Holt blinked. "Patricia collapsed at a restaurant 45 minutes ago. Acute aortic dissection. Her valve is torn. She's on life support right now. My ER team has stabilized her, but she needs emergency cardiothoracic surgery within the hour." Holt's coffee cup tilted in his hand. A thin stream of brown liquid spilled onto the tile floor. He didn't notice. "And the only surgeon within 100 miles who is certified to perform that operation, the only person who can keep your wife alive tonight, is the man you have locked in a cage right now, in his scrubs, because he was driving home." The color drained from Holt's face, not slowly, all at once, like someone had pulled a plug. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. That can't. It is. Call your hospital if you don't believe me. Ask for the ER. Ask them who they've been trying to reach for the last hour. Holt looked at Dawson. Dawson looked at the floor. Holt set his coffee cup on the desk, missed the edge. It fell to the floor and shattered. He didn't react. He was already moving down the hallway. His boots, the same boots that had crunched gravel around Derek an hour ago, now sounded different, faster, desperate. The echo of authority replaced by the echo of panic. He reached the holding cell. His hands fumbled with the keys. Metal scraped against metal. The lock clicked open. Derek was sitting exactly where Holt had left him, hands on his knees, spine straight, eyes forward. He hadn't moved an inch. Holt pulled the door open, stood there, breathing hard. His mouth is working, but producing nothing useful. Derek looked at him,
slowly, the same way he had looked at him through those bars 20 minutes ago. Except now, everything was different. Now, Holt needed him. Derek stood, straightened his scrubs, walked out of the cell, past Holt without a word, without a glance, the way you'd walk past a piece of furniture. Holt followed behind him like a shadow, smaller now, shrinking with every step. In the lobby, Whitfield was waiting. He handed Derek a set of car keys.
I'll drive. The OR team is prepping now. Derek nodded, took the keys, headed for the door. Behind them, Holt's voice cracked the silence. Thin, broken. "Doctor?" Derek stopped. He didn't turn around. Is she going to?" Derek stood still for 3 seconds. The longest 3 seconds of Gerald Holt's life. Then he said, quietly, "I'll do everything I can." He walked out. The glass doors closed behind him. Whitfield opened the passenger door of the Mercedes. As Derek got in, Whitfield looked at him. "You don't owe him a thing. You know that." Derek stared straight ahead. The hospital was 12 minutes away. Patricia Holt had maybe 40 minutes left. "I'm not doing this for him." The engine started. The car pulled out of the lot. "I'm doing this because a woman is dying. And I'm a doctor. That's what I do." The Mercedes disappeared down Oak Ridge Road. The same road where, 90 minutes earlier, a man in scrubs had been forced to his knees on cold asphalt. The same road, a completely different world. The Mercedes screeched into the hospital parking lot at 8:31 p.m. Derek was out of the car before it fully stopped. He pushed through the ER entrance. The automatic doors weren't fast enough. He squeezed through the gap sideways, already moving at a half run. The surgical team was waiting. 2 nurses, an anesthesiologist, a perfusionist standing beside the heart-lung bypass machine. They had prepped operating room 1, the big one, the one reserved for cases where the margin between life and death is measured in heartbeats. Dr. West met him in the hallway. She was walking fast, clipboard in hand, face tight. "She's crashing again. 3rd time in 20 minutes. We've got maybe 30 minutes before the dissection becomes irreversible." Derek didn't slow down. "Blood type?" "O positive. 6 units standing by." "Imaging?" "CT angio on the screen in OR1. The tear is in the ascending aorta. Root involvement. It's bad." "Okay." Derek pushed open the scrub room door. "Get her to bypass the second I walk in." He stood at the sink, turned on the water. The soap foamed over the same hands that had been pressed against the cold hood of a police cruiser less than 2 hours ago. The same fingers that had been rolled in black ink at a booking station. He scrubbed for exactly 4 minutes, the way he always does. No more, no less. Then he walked into OR1. Patricia Holt lay on the table. Her chest was already open. The anesthesiologist had her under. The monitors beeped in a rhythm that was too fast and too irregular. The bypass machine hummed beside her, ready to take over the job her heart could no longer do. Derek looked at the CT scan on the wall-mounted screen. The tear was severe. The aortic root was swollen to nearly twice its normal size. One wrong move, 1 millimeter off, and the entire vessel would rupture. He took a breath, pulled on his gloves, adjusted his headlamp. "All right, let's go." For the next 3 hours and 14 minutes, Derek Norwood did what he was born to do. He worked in silence, precise, methodical. His hands moved the way a concert pianist's move. Muscle memory and instinct merged into something almost spiritual. He sutured. He grafted. He reinforced the torn aortic wall with a synthetic patch so delicate that a single tremor would destroy it. The room was silent except for the monitors and the soft hiss of suction. Nobody spoke, unless Derek spoke first. The nurses anticipated his movements. Instruments appeared in his hand before he asked for them. At 11:45 p.m., Derek placed the final suture, stepped back, watched the monitor. The heart rhythm steadied, strong, regular, alive. "She's stable," he said. "Let's close." He pulled off his gloves, dropped them in the bin, walked out of the operating room without ceremony. In the waiting room, Gerald Holt sat in a plastic chair, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. His uniform was wrinkled. His eyes were red. Officers Dawson and Moore sat on either side of him. Nobody was talking. Derek appeared in the doorway, still in his scrubs, sweat stains visible at the collar. His face showed nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just exhaustion. Holt stood up. His legs were unsteady. "Your wife is stable," Derek said. "The surgery was successful. She'll need weeks of recovery, but she's going to live." Holt exhaled, a long, shuddering breath that seemed to empty his entire body. His eyes watered. His lips trembled. "Doctor, thank you. I don't know how to. Don't." The word stopped Holt mid-sentence. Derek's voice stayed level, quiet, but every syllable carried weight. "2 hours ago, you put me on my knees on a public road. You called me a thief. You told me I don't belong here. You locked me in a cage and told me to go back where I came from." Holt's mouth hung open. No sound came out. "You may want to call your attorney before you say anything else to me."
Derek turned and walked down the hallway. His footsteps echoed against the polished floor. He didn't look back. Holt stood there, frozen, staring at the empty hallway like a man watching his entire life collapse in slow motion. Behind him, Officer Tanya Moore stood up quietly. She excused herself, walked to the hospital administration desk. "I need to speak with someone in charge," she said. "I have body cam footage that needs to be preserved." She reached up and unclipped the small black camera from her chest. All of it. The first domino fell at 6 a.m. the next morning. The college kid's cell phone video, the one he posted with the caption, "They just arrested a doctor for nothing," had been live for less than 12 hours. It already had 60,000 views. By sunrise, it crossed 200,000. The video was grainy, shaky, shot from across the street, but it was clear enough. A black man in surgical scrubs, hands on the hood, 2 officers standing over him.
Red and blue lights flashing. And then, the handcuffs. Local news picked it up first. Channel 4 Briarfield ran it during their morning broadcast with the headline, "Local Surgeon Detained During Routine Traffic Stop. No Charges Filed." By noon, it wasn't local anymore. Attorney Denise Collins saw the video at 7:15 a.m. She was eating breakfast in her kitchen when her phone buzzed with a link from a colleague. She watched it once, watched it again, set down her coffee, and called her office. "Cancel everything today. I'm taking a case." By 10 a.m., Collins had filed a public records request for all body cam footage from the October 15th traffic stop on Oak Ridge Road. By 2 p.m., she had it. Officer Tanya Moore's body cam footage was 53 minutes long, unedited, uninterrupted, and it was devastating. It captured everything the cell phone video missed, the close-up audio of Holt's voice, the sneer when he flicked Derek's hospital lanyard off his neck, the moment he called surgical instruments burglary tools, the casual cruelty in his voice when he said, I've been cleaning trash off these streets for 18 years. But the body cam was only the second worst piece of evidence. The worst was the holding cell footage. The security camera in the hallway outside Derek's cell had recorded 9 minutes and 42 seconds of Chief Gerald Holt standing at the bars, delivering what could only be described as a monologue of pure contempt. Every word, every pause, every smirk. People like you don't belong here. Go back to wherever you came from. All of it, in high definition, with audio. Collins held a press conference at 4 p.m. She stood on the steps of the county courthouse. Microphones bristled in front of her like a steel garden. She played 30 seconds of the body cam footage, then 30 seconds of the holding cell footage. She didn't need to say much after that. Dr. Derek Norwood is a chief of surgery who has saved hundreds of lives in this community. Last night, he was arrested without cause, searched without a warrant, and subjected to racial abuse by the chief of police. And then, while still in custody, he was released only because the chief's own wife needed his hands to survive. Let that sink in. The clip went national within the hour. CNN, MSNBC, Fox, ABC, every network ran it. The headline wrote itself across every screen in America. Police chief arrests black surgeon, then begs him to save his wife. Social media didn't just pick it up, it detonated. The body cam clip hit 14 million views in 48 hours. The hashtag #FreeDerekNorwood trended for 3 consecutive days, even though Derek had already been released. It didn't matter. The hashtag wasn't about his freedom. It was about everything the arrest represented. Briarfield County, a town most Americans had never heard of, was now the most talked about place in the country. And the political ground beneath Gerald Holt began to crack. Mayor Brenda Sullivan had released a statement at 9 a.m. that morning. It read, "We support our law enforcement officers and trust in the department's internal review process." By 6 p.m., after the press conference, after the footage, after 3 sitting congresspeople called for an investigation, Sullivan released a second statement. "I am calling for an immediate independent investigation into the conduct of the Briarfield Police Department." The county sheriff's office took over the investigation. Within a week, the state attorney general opened a parallel civil rights inquiry. What they found buried the department. 14 traffic stops involving black drivers in the past year. Not one resulted in charges. Every single stop was initiated by either Holt or Dawson. Probable cause documentation was missing in all 14 cases. In 6 of them, there was no documentation at all. Internal emails surfaced during the investigation. Holt had sent a message to his officers 8 months earlier with the subject line, "Neighborhood Awareness." The body of the email instructed patrol units to maintain heightened vigilance regarding new residents who do not fit the established community profile. The prosecutors didn't need a translator for that. The federal grand jury indicted Gerald Holt on 3 counts: false imprisonment, violation of civil rights under federal statute, and abuse of authority. The trial lasted 4 days. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty. All counts. Holt was sentenced to 30 months in federal prison, banned from law enforcement for life. His pension was revoked. He stood in the courtroom when the verdict was read. His face was gray. His hands trembled at his sides. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in 10 weeks. Officer Craig Dawson was terminated and charged as an accomplice. He received 18 months
suspended to 12 with mandatory retraining. Collins publicly called the sentence a slap on a wrist that deserved a hammer. Most people agreed. But the legal reckoning didn't stop there. Collins filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against Briarfield County on Derek's behalf. The county fought it for exactly 11 days before their attorneys advised settlement. The number? $4.8 million. Derek accepted the settlement, then held his own press conference. It was short. He stood behind a podium in a Navy suit. No notes, no anger, just clarity. I'm donating the full amount to establish the Norwood Justice Initiative, a legal defense fund for victims of racial profiling who can't afford an attorney.
Because what happened to me happens every day to people who don't have a hospital board chairman to come get them out. He stepped away from the podium, didn't take questions. Officer Tanya Moore, the quiet one, the one who stood by her cruiser and watched, the one who handed over her body cam and filed the first complaint. She was promoted to lieutenant. 6 months later, she transferred to the State Police Academy. She now teaches a mandatory course to every incoming cadet. The course is called Protect and Serve, and what those words actually mean. 1 year later, Briarfield County looked different. Not the lawns, not the oak trees, not the freshly painted fences, or the neighborhood watch signs. Those were all still there. What changed was underneath. The Briarfield Police Department had a new chief, the first one hired from outside the county in its entire history. A civilian oversight board now reviewed every use of force report, every traffic stop, every complaint.
The board met monthly in the community center on Oak Ridge Road, the same road where Derek Norwood had been forced to his knees. The meetings were open to the public. People actually showed up. Derek Norwood still drives that same dark blue Chevy Tahoe, still plays classical music on the way home, still keeps his hospital lanyard hanging from the rearview mirror. He never replaced the one Holt flicked off his neck that night. He got a new one. It hangs in the same spot. He still drives the speed limit on Oak Ridge Road, 33 in a 35. Some habits don't change. Some habits shouldn't have to exist. But other things did change. Derek now sits on the county's Civilian Oversight Board. He was asked. He accepted. Not because he wanted to relive what happened, because he wanted to make sure it didn't happen to someone else. He also speaks at medical schools across the South. Not about surgery, about the intersection of race and service, about what it means to take an oath to save every life, even the life connected to the man who tried to break yours. His daughter asked him once, over dinner, "Dad, do you regret moving to Briarfield?" He thought about it for a long time, longer than she expected. "No," he said, "because if I leave, they win. And I didn't survive what I survived just to let somebody else decide where I belong." Patricia Holt made a full recovery. 8 weeks of rehabilitation, 3 months of cardiac therapy. She sent Derek a handwritten letter, 3 pages. The contents have never been made public. Derek has never spoken about it. Neither has she. They have never been in the same room since the night of the surgery. Gerald Holt served his sentence at a federal facility in another state. Upon release, he moved. Nobody in Briarfield knows where. Nobody in Briarfield asks. His name has become the kind of name people use as a cautionary tale, spoken in training rooms and courtrooms, never in admiration. Officer Craig Dawson completed his sentence and left law enforcement entirely. Last anyone heard, he was working at a supply warehouse 2 states away.
He has made no public statements. Officer Tanya Moore, Lieutenant Moore now, stands in front of a classroom of new cadets every Monday morning. She starts each session the same way. She plays the first 30 seconds of her own body cam footage from that night. The room always goes silent. Then she asks one question. What would you have done? Most cadets don't answer right away. That silence, she says, is the whole point. James Whitfield III pushed the hospital board to establish a permanent diversity and equity initiative. It carries Derek's name. The Norwood Fellowship funds 3 underrepresented medical students every year. Full ride, no exceptions. The Norwood Justice Initiative, funded by the full $4.8 million settlement, has taken on 31 cases in its first year. 24 resulted in settlements or policy changes. 7 are still pending. Derek doesn't run it. He didn't want to. He wanted it to be bigger than him. He wanted it to outlast him. It will.
Look. Yeah, the story, made up. But that feeling, though. When someone looks at you and already decided you're nothing before you even say a word? Yeah, that's real. That's like a normal day for a lot of people. And I'm not going to lie, every time I think about that, yeah, that one messes with me.
So let me ask you something, and I mean this for real. If you were Derek, if you were the one in that cell, in your scrubs, hands still smelling like ink from a booking station, would you have walked into that operating room and saved her life? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know. And if this story hit you, if it made you feel something, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, turn on notifications, because we've got more stories like this coming. Justice doesn't always come fast, but when good people refuse to break, it comes. See you in the next one.